we are live from the workshop. How's everybody doing today? What is it? Friday the 2nd of July. Crazy. July 4th weekend. Wow. Hope everybody has some big plans. If that's something you celebrate, that would be awesome. Safe plans, hopefully. Still a lot of crazy going on out there in the world, so let's be safe about it. But, you know, hopefully you've all had your shots and you can maybe get together with some friends and have a little barbecue or, you know, watch some fireworks or something like that. If it's not, you know, I feel bad for places like I was talking to a friend who lives in Colorado and they're like, yeah, we don't do fireworks because we don't want to set the state on fire. And I was like, yeah, I get it. It's not a problem here where I am. In fact, we just got dumped on yesterday. In fact, we had several power outages, and I just want to I'm hoping everything's cool now. It's the last one was at night. Last night, or actually early this morning, and we lost power, but not long, 20 minutes or so, which is not terrible. My son actually had to bring his dog over because he lost power, and it's gonna be off all day because they had a transformer blow. So we had some wicked storms come through here, and but not a ton of rain. Some places got some hot spots, but we got a little bit of rain, and that's okay because rain makes the stuff grow, and we haven't had a ton of rain. We've actually been pretty good with our rain output. I always talk about people who water the lawn. I'm on a well and septic system, right? So people who water, my neighbors who water the lawns and stuff, and I'm just like, if you all drain my aquifer, I'm not going to be happy. My thought is, you know what, if the powers be want me to have a green lawn, they'll make it rain. And so I do not water my lawn, but that's just me. So anyway, I'm just taking care of some business here, and I've got to start up the stream the stream started. But I'm aligning my windows here so that I can see the stream online and open up my chat windows. So, excuse me. If you want to interact with the stream, if you want to just pop in and say hi or have questions or comments or whatever, there is a window for each of you, no matter which platform you're on. If you're on Twitch, if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, each one of those has their own chat window, and I try to monitor all of them because that way, come on, I gotta shut the volume off on them though because I don't want to hear myself repeated. But anyway, there are chat windows for each of those, so I do encourage and appreciate any chatting that takes place. Let me get over here and get the last of these going here, which would be the Twitch. And yeah, so I am on 3 different, oh, excuse me, nose is itchy. I'm on 3 different platforms. I multicast or simulcast or whatever you want to call it. I live stream to 3 different channels. So to Twitch, to YouTube, and to Facebook on my Facebook page. And if you want to switch platforms or whatever, if you look down at the bottom there, whoa, that's not there, but down like here, this area down here, those are all of my socials where I actually do all of my streaming. So hang on, I'm just getting my windows lined up. I apologize. And there we go. 1, 2, and 3 are up. So I can monitor comments, and if somebody asks a question, I'll repeat the question so that if you're on a different platform, you'll see it. I don't have a unified chat, but I've talked about that before, so we're not going to get heavily into that. All right. Well, what I will chat about is what we're going to do today. Wednesday was, that was a grind. I did a lot of planing on Wednesday because I had to get all of these boards over here down to their proper thickness. and there were some thick boards in there, so it takes a long time and quite a few passes through the planer to get these things down to the appropriate thickness, which is like 3/4 of an inch. And that's important because that 3/4 of an inch measurement is built into the plans so that I get the appropriate thickness. Oh, excuse me. Oh, goodness. My son woke me up early this morning and to ask me if he could bring his dogs over. So I'm a little tired. So basically, these boards have been, take this one for example, they have now been jointed on one side. They have been jointed on one facing side or one 90-degree side. So I have one 90-degree corner right here. They have then been planed on the other flat side. So now the jointed side and the plane side are parallel. I've got one 90-degree edge right here, but I need to now clean up this last side right here, and that will give me nice square four square sides and or 4 square corners, actually, not sides. But that'll give me 4 square corners with all surface sides. And then I can go and start milling these things up to their appropriate thickness, or not thickness, but width for boards or board length or however you want it. You know, it's Friday. My brain's not working. But anyway, I need to get these down to their appropriate width, and then we will make them the appropriate lengths by taking them over to the saw, the chop saw, the whatever you want to call it, the saw over there behind me. I'm just straightening some stuff up. And we will make them the appropriate length, which means we will be doing multiple, because we need 2 long sides and then 2 or 3 short sides, depending on if it's going to have a storage compartment or not. So really what I'm going to do today is first get these things sized up to the size they need to be, the width, and then we'll go from there. One of these particular ones is a little thinner, and that's the one I'm going to use. So this is my first board right here. We'll start with the walnut. Such a pretty wood. I need to make sure that I've got a clear path here, which I do. So this is my outfeed table also. So my saw's over there, and you can see here, I'll show you. So the board comes from over here and passes and then lands over here on the outfeed table. I do not have my camera turned on here, so I should probably turn this camera on. And this is my my other camera here. Let's get camera 4 fired up, shall we? Let's see if it wants to go. There we go. All right, so here is the other view. So you can see this is going off of the table down here, and then it down onto I use my workbench as an outfeed table. It works really well most of the time. Sometimes the workbench is a little crowded and I have to make some room, but it's all good. Just makes me clean up. It's kind of like forcing me to clean up after a while. I'm going to need this probably. That is my gripper. So once we get all these boards cut to their proper width on the table saw, I will then transport them over to the saw behind me, which is right there. And we will get these things cut to their appropriate length and make sets of wood that we can then put together. We'll do the joinery cuts on them, and then the whole process starts from there. So this is the last of the table saw is the last of what I would call the milling process. And then from there, it's going to be basically the construction process. So milling is first, where you get your boards milled to their appropriate thickness and width. And then from there, you cut the lengths that you need. So, and that you can do, if you buy your wood surfaced on 4 sides, you just jump straight to your length portion. But for me, I buy rough cut lumber, so I need to start with the milling process and get my 4 sides squared up. But I save a lot of money doing that. All right, I didn't do anything yesterday. Well, I didn't do anything in the shop yesterday. I take that back. I finished doing the milling on these because I didn't do. Did I do all of it on Wednesday? I did some of it on Wednesday. I did most of it on Wednesday. I kind of finished up a couple of things yesterday, and then I really didn't do anything in the shop because it was just muggy as all get out. It's cooler today. We had a front come through, like I mentioned earlier, dumped some showers, but it also cooled things down a bit. So it's only in the 70s, which is nice. My shop's only 76 degrees, which is nice. It's workable temperature. And yeah, so let's do some work, shall we? I'm just going to go ahead and jump into it. I might, if I get finished a little early today, so be it. But I want to get these things kind of moving and get all these board sets made up so that we can really kind of start looking at what we've got here. For those who don't know, and if you haven't been in here previously, what I'm doing is making sewing machine bases. So I've got basically antique Singer sewing machines, and they probably at one point in time either came in a base or in a table, a sewing machine table. And a lot of times people like to put them in a base and use them with a hand crank on them, or they just like to display them in a base. So I'm making bases, but I'm not making the normal bases I make. I'm making what's called a 3/4 size base to accommodate a specific number of models of machine. And so once we get them to the proper width, we're going to figure out what lengths I need. And I've kind of roughly done this already, but we're going to figure out what lengths we need to make those sets of sewing machine bases. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch to camera 3. 3's good. 3's good. And I think I have my dust collection in already. I have my ears here. The saw is plugged in. And what I need to do now is I need to figure out how wide I want to make this board. Because I think this one's pretty good. I just need to knock it over a little bit. Usually I do about 3 inches on these things. This one I did not have as much. Well, first I'm going to raise my saw blade up. So let's do that. I feel like I'm not hitting on all cylinders this morning. It's probably because I had to wake up early. Not quite hitting all the cylinders this morning. It's all right. We'll catch up here soon. So I'm going to move this over. We're just going to shave a hair off of this thing. All I'm trying to do is get this squared up. Now, the 3/4 bases, I can make those only like 1.5 inches if I wanted to tall. I'm going to make them taller than that, but I'm going to trim this wood down to the point where, because I couldn't quite go 3 inches on all of these because this one didn't quite make it. The board was just a little shy of giving me 3-inch wide boards, but that's okay. I'm going to go down just a little bit more. So we're going to make these 2 7/8, and I think that would work for these particular boards. All these will probably be different widths just because I'm working with the stock that I have, but they will all work out in the end. As far as the lengths go, the box dimensions will still be the same. It's just their height might be a little different. So I'm going to go ahead and put on my ears, and I'm going to set up my, can I hit? Nope. So I'm going to set up my gripper just to help me push these things through. And I think we'll go ahead and let's make a cut and see what we get here. Let me get my remote here for this. Okay, let's make a cut. Ugh, that's the only problem when you're just trimming off an edge. It just kicks a whole lot of debris back. That's the only time where I really, really regret not having an overarm dust collector, because it is what it is. But anyway, what I do have now is, let me bring this over here. I now have 3 boards that are all exactly the same width, and then I can start putting those together. So that was the whole goal of this. Is you can see these are all now all the same width, and that will give me a lot of accuracy when it comes to actually creating the bases. So I've got to do the same thing with several of these. I've just got to figure out how much. What I do, because I know that I make a mark on here for this is the jointed side and this is the square side. So I know that this is parallel, but I like to keep that jointed side down on the table and then that squared side against the fence. And that way I know that when I cut, when I go to trim these off, basically I'm getting these 2 sides right here are going to be parallel to each other. And that's what I need out of this. So this right here, these are 2 little ones. I mean, I could use the same measurement. I probably will use the same measurement here. Why not? Let's go ahead and do these 2. There's only 2 boards here for this cherry. Okay. Now I could cut this the same, these next 2 boards here. This is red oak. I mean, I could cut these the same if I wanted to. I might do that. How much is that going to cut off of there? Yeah, I can do that, I guess. Yeah, we'll go ahead and do this the same, and we'll make everything that we can. These last 2, these are sycamore. These are already going to be really thin, but that's okay. I think we can get the. Well, you know what? I'm going to take these up a little bit. These do not need this much. I'm just going to take off just a little bit off of here. Maybe a 1/16 under. So we'll call this 15/16, and that should do it. Okay, and let me make sure I'm not going to hit my thing on here. All righty. Ugh, it kicks so much stuff back at me, but that's okay. All right, last 2. Now I got to figure out how thick we're going to make these. This is probably my thinnest one, I think. And make sure I get the right size here. So this is going to have to come down quite a bit here. We're going to, now did this one get, pretty sure it's 90 degrees. Something just fell. I'm going to get my square just because I want to check this to make sure. Because like I said, these really do need to be square or you're just not going to, yep. All right, that's pretty darn close to square right there. Okay. Now I have to figure out how thick to make this. I'm just taking off just as little as possible off of this thing. I really do want to just, why is this being weird? There we go. Just want to clean the edge off of this. That's all I want to do. That looks pretty good. Okay. All right, let's make this cut and grab the other one, finish that. And I mean, then we'll be done. That's all we have to do on the table saw for right now. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well, there we go. So that is all of my, I went ahead and made those 2.5. They just, it was, I really wanted to make sure I got them down and even and nice. I had to just kind of, I kept touching it over. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna make 2.5 and it'll be fine. So let me grab the dust hose and I'm just gonna clean off some of this excess dust that I've just created here because it's a mess. So give me just a second to clean this off. Okay. Okay, I mean, I didn't want to go crazy on the cleaning up, but the one thing about that is that if there's a lot of sawdust on the floor, that makes an unsafe work surface, and you know, better to spend just a few seconds cleaning up than to have slippery floors. All right, the next thing we need to do is we're going to go over to the, I keep saying reciprocating saw. It's not a reciprocating saw. It is my circular saw over here. I'm going to set this up as well. I'm going to set up the dust collection on this, and I need to also move the power for this. Let's see what we got going on here. I'm going to rotate this around. This gives me more hose to play with if I turn it. And it doesn't do a great job of dust collection, but it's, you know, it's better than nothing. So we'll put that in there. Yeah, we will, let's see, I'm gonna need power over there. So let me get the power. And you're like, why do you keep doing this? Well, I have a very small shop, obviously, and I also have very limited power in my shop. I have basically 2 circuits that power everything in here, and I have literally, in terms of outlets, I have 1 outlet on the wall over there behind the camera, and I have no outlets on any other wall in here. I don't know who designed this garage, but frankly, they were idiots. They designed it with 1 outlet in this entire garage, which is ludicrous. Anyway, there are outlets above for garage door openers. And so what I have done is I have run extension cords, well, not extension cord, but I've got a multi-outlet on the wall behind me over here. You can sort of see it right there. And that actually runs up to one of the ceiling outlets. So I have as many of these plugged into there as possible. So things like my jointer and my drill press and my bandsaw and my X-carve, but not the router part of the X-carve, just the X-carve itself. And anyway, all that stuff is hooked up, the vacuum, all that stuff is hooked into there, and then my chargers and everything else, it all runs off that 1 circuit. And then, oh, by the way, all of the lights come off the same circuit. So I have to be really careful about how I run power to this stuff. Now, what I did do was ran the power for these overhead lights off the second one. It's crazy. One of my life goals is to get additional outlets put in here. My power on the other, unfortunately, is on the other side of my house and in the basement. So I have to go and have probably a breakout box put in here, which means I have to have the power lines run in here and then have an outlet box put on the wall over here, and then probably run external conduit and pipe that around the garage and then have power drops coming out of there from different circuits. That's kind of what I'm looking at doing here at some point in time. But I have to have an electrician come and do that stuff because electricity is not my thing. And you know what? I'm all about staying safe and not taking on things that'll kill me, like electricity. So I leave that to the professionals, and I will hopefully find somebody who can do that. You know, the problem is if I actually call an electrical company, I'm just looking to see there's a motorcycle parked in front of my house. Why is there a motorcycle parked in front of my house with the engine running? What are you doing? Oh, he's got his dog. It's my neighbor. He walks his dog while he's on his motorcycle. It is the craziest thing, but they're very cool. Anywho, yeah, I will probably get somebody who is, you know, will do it kind of off books, get an electrician, you know, Craigslist or something, and hopefully, you know, they'll be bonded and insured and all that good stuff. So, all right, let's go ahead and start making and marking some sets here. So I need to figure out what I need in terms of dimensions. I'm going to go grab these off my wall real quick because I have these written down, and I actually have schematic on my wall. So pardon me for leaving frame for just a minute because I need 3 different measurements here. So I need either an 18.5 inch long piece, or a 13 3/4 inch long piece, And then I need a bunch of 7 and 11/16 long pieces. Okay. So those are the 3 different dimensions we're going to be working with today. And the way those break down are the long pieces are going to be the front and the back of the base. And then depending on if it's going to have a storage compartment or no storage compartment, that dictates whether it's going to be the 18.5 or 13 3/4. Now, for those of you who don't have any clue, because maybe you're new and you don't know what I'm talking about, let me grab one here and show you so you're not completely lost. Hang on a second, I have one here. So these are stained, but they're not lacquered yet. But they're sitting just outside. They're curing. I always let my finishes, like my stain and my oils and things like that, I like to let them fully cure before I hit them with the lacquer. So this right here is a base for a sewing machine. It has corner supports right here, and that's what the machine sits on. These corner supports. This one has a side storage compartment, so you can see there's a lid, and it's just a little compartment on the side. I make the little lids, and they sit flush in here. If I make these without the storage compartment, then basically what you're getting is this. This is the edge right here. It's just this part of the box, right? This part of the base. I leave this part off. So that dictates whether I need a long piece of wood or a shorter piece of wood in front and back. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about sewing machine bases. And I think I've already figured out that these, the walnut ones are going to be full-size bases. And in order to do these, what I have to do first is I need to make a cut on the end of the board here, because I don't know if this board is square. And once again, we need square wood. So I'm not sure if this has been cut squarely. It looks like it has. I mean, I'm looking at that. I don't see any gap in there. So you know what? I'm going to say this is square and just start cutting and measuring and cutting. So I need an 18.5-inch board on here. All right. Let me get my tape. Got my pencil. So we're going to measure 18.5 inches from this end right here and make sure that that is a clean end down there. Now, the other thing I like to do before I start actually cutting these into big and long pieces is just look at the wood grain, because if there's a piece that has a really pretty, grain pattern going through it, I might want to use that as a decorative accent for the actual base and say, oh, I'd like that grain. If it's just kind of plain, I might want to use the plain pieces for like the sides or the back and have the nicest looking piece that will be the front. And these do have fronts to them. So typically I will look to see what the grain looks like. Now this is actually not bad. This is kind of flowy and has some nice curves and flow, kind of wave patterns in here. So I like this. It's got a couple little like bird's eye notches on there, or little things. A lot of times when like the tree's growing, if little branches start to form and then they grow out of it, it'll have these little bird's eye patterns. Maple is notorious for getting bird's eyes. In fact, there's a whole classification of maple called bird's eye maple, which people go and hunt down because it looks really cool. But anyway, I'm going to mark this at 18.5 inches. Now the other thing I want to do, hang on a second, I want to find out where my square, okay. Because I want to put my square flat side, I always want to put that, I mean they're all square and flat supposedly, but I go with my original square flat and I like to put that against the fence and face down when I cut these. All right, there's my mark. I'm going to use my woodpecker square here to get a really nice defined mark on there for my 18.5 inches. And I'm going to cut this one. And then what I will do is use this one as a measuring stick to cut the second one, because I need a pair of 18.5 because I got a front of the base and a back of the base, right? So I need a pair, so I will use this as my measuring stick for doing that. So what I'm going to do is take this over to the saw. Let me grab my ears and grab my dust remote, and let's hop over to the saw. It's down here. And because I have a door right here and I don't want to open the door right now, I'm going to have the extended piece of wood, the long piece, stick off over top of my my CNC machine. And the other thing I'm going to do is just put this over top. I don't have to have it clamped down, but it keeps it from flipping up once it's cut. So let me go ahead and get this lined up. So I'm cutting right to that line right there. And I want to have this, make sure that it's pressed right square against this fence, and that gives me a nice square cut this way. All right, let's see what we get on this first one. And just to make sure, I'm just going to get my measuring tape here and measure this to ensure that I got the correct. It's 18.5. That looks really good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece of wood that I just cut, and I'm going to cut my second 18.5-inch long piece. And I'm going to move this down. And I'm going to use my original piece now as my measuring stick for cutting this. So what I do is I get these two edges. This edge right here is going to match up with the edge of this board. So I get them perfectly matched up, and I just use my fingertips, which are, you know, your fingers are super sensitive, and they can tell when a board is overlapping or not. And I get them all flush and lined up, and then what I will do is I will move this whole thing back, flush and lined up, and then I will lower the saw blade down. I'm not pushing it into this piece of wood, I'm just lowering it down just above it, so the teeth are just above, and then I slide both pieces forward until that top piece, until this piece right here contacts the teeth of the saw blade right there. And I know if I remove this now, and I'm going to put this, I'm holding that saw down right now to keep this in place, but I know that that piece will be the exact same as the other. I need my dust. So now when I look at these two boards and I put them together, I have two boards that are exactly the same length. So that's how I do that. And it's pretty easy, it's pretty quick. That way I don't have to set a stop block to side things into. I don't have to keep coming over and measuring with a ruler. I just get these set up. Now, let me go ahead and, what do we got going on here? Here we go. So I'm going to go ahead now and measure, because this is my cut right here. I'm going to measure 7 11/16. Now I need, because I'm going to do 3 of these, okay, so this is going to have a side compartment. So it's going to have one side, and then one in the middle that will divide the compartment from the main portion where the machine goes. So I need 3 of these, and they need to be 7 11/16. Yes, I figured all this out beforehand. So 8, 9, 10, 11/16. But like I said, once I get one, I use that as a measuring stick for the others to follow. And it just makes life a lot easier to do it that way. Slide this up, get my one done here. Now, I had other lines here, so I got to erase this line so I don't confuse myself. I had gone in and just done some rough, put some rough lines down on here just to kind of say, okay, do I have enough material to do this? And I do. So but I'd kind of gone through and figured out, you know, like, okay, if I need 3 of these, and so I kind of just rough cut them, or rough measured them, and we're good. So let's go ahead and cut this first one. And like I said, these are 7, 11, 16. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. I've got plenty to do that with. I need, what, basically around 24 inches. And I certainly have 24 inches worth of wood here. I do not need the support anymore. That out of the way. And line this first one up and make the cut. That looks right there. Okay. All right, this is now, see, those are all the same size, right? So you got 3 of these. They're all pretty darn close right there. That one's just up. It's very close. And then here. So this is what I would call my working set right here. So this is kind of what I'm after. This is really the goal for the day, is to make my working sets. So this material right here is now cut and ready for joinery cuts for this particular base. So I'm going to make these different sets of wood now and just keep following through that process. Now, what I can do, because these are already cut to size, I could use these as templates to speed up my process for getting to getting my other boards cut. I don't necessarily have to make lines and cut and do all that stuff. I could use one of those, but I'm going to go ahead and just measure. Now this one has a funky end to it. You can see right here, the end of this board is kind of chewed up. So I'm definitely not going to start from here. Plus it's got some chip out and stuff. So I will start this down on the other end. And this has some pretty wood grain to it. So you can see this is a pretty board right here. There you go. It's walnut. Walnut's always pretty. Well, not always, but usually pretty to me. The one thing I think I'm going to do on this one, I think you're going to have to do, is I'm going to check to see if this is square or not. I don't think it is. It's not. So I need to square up the end of this board before I actually do any measuring and cutting. So we're going to go back over here. I'm just going to put this, let me find my squared edge here. Right here. And I'm just gonna slice just the edge of this board off here. I'm just gonna do a thin cut just to get myself a nice square surface to work with. Okay, so all my measurements are going to come from this end of the board now. Because this should be nice and square. Just going to get my square here, and yep, nice and square, flat and even. Honestly, that's the hardest part, is just getting, you want to make sure that you're getting yourself in a good place to start. Now I've got a mark on here I need to erase. And then I put my good mark on it. It was too close to that other pencil mark I'd made. Good estimate on my part, but All right, 18.5 right there. So these walnut ones I have already established there is enough wood for me to make 3 of these bases with storage compartments. Not the case with all of them, but for the walnut, there's definitely enough wood to make that happen. So that's what we're gonna do here. So let's get this first one cut and then just keep on moving down the line. I'm gonna cut this one, then I'm gonna use that offcut to measure and cut the second one. I'm not tightening this down. It's just enough that the pressure won't lift it up and this board won't kick up when I'm done cutting it. So that's its only purpose right there. It doesn't have to hold it super flat to the surface. It just needs to hold it from kicking up. And why do I have a little, that's weird. Hang on. Make sure there's nothing on the board here because that should be very flat against there. I'm getting this little rocking motion here, which is really weird. Why? Why? It should be nice and flush and flat. Okay, hang on a second. I don't like that. It was being very strange. Measure from this side. So let me do this again from over here. That was weird. It was like it was rocking in there. It shouldn't rock. I mean, that's the least, you should not get any rocking motion in there. Pencil mark right here. All right, let's try it this way. See if I can eliminate that rocking motion in here. It was very strange. Not sure why it was doing that. There we go. That's flush. That's the way it should be. Okay. But the other thing is it's wood, and you know, as you make cuts to wood, well, it can change. And especially you make a cut and you leave it sit for a day or two, that wood will move after you cut it. It's just a fact. So like right here, it actually looks like there's a tiny bit of a bow right here. All right, get this one sized up. But even if there's a tiny bit of a bow in there, because I'm cutting them into shorter pieces, it's going to be almost unmeasurable. So really that shouldn't be a big deal. You know, I didn't change camera views. Sorry about that. It'll happen. I'll get it next time. Okay, now I need those shorter ones. And like I said, I'm going to borrow one of these and just use this as a measuring stick to get these set up. And then I'll put this one back and go forward. All right. So hopefully you can see also that my goal is to have minimal waste. So from these long boards, here's set number 2, right? So I've got 2 sets here. These are my board sets, right? For my bases. This is my scrap wood from those 2 boards so far. So I try to be very minimal in the amount of scrap that I leave. And that's why sometimes I'll make big bases and sometimes small bases. It depends on what I can squeeze out of the board lengths that I have. And I just find that if I take my time and measure, I try to get, wood's expensive, man. So I try to get as much utility out of my wood as I can. Now this piece actually has a little bit of figure in it. Let me see if you can see this or not. There's some figure in this one, which is really pretty right up through here. So this will definitely be a front piece because it definitely has some nice figure on it. Let me find my measurements here. Okay, so I need to cut it. Okay. So I need to check this for square on the end here. It may not be. Check to see if this is square. And it needs to be trimmed down just a little bit before I start measuring on it. So we'll go trim this down. Remember, I'm just cutting the very, very edge of this off. I'm not really cutting anything significant. Just trimming that off just so I have a nice square edge on it. I'm gonna mark my 18.5 inches here. So all these right now have been the same. They're all getting side compartments. And so they are all getting cut to 18.5 for the long pieces. The thing about this, I lose my pencil mark on here because it's, there we go. Because it's dark wood. All right, let's go cut this. And then we'll get this one done. Okay. Excuse me. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got all of these board sets cut now, so you can see there's all 3 of them. And that is really, that's the bulk of the wood that goes into the majority of the carcass, if you will, the box piece that makes these things. There are other pieces that go into it. I use a piece of plywood for the underside, for the bottom. So this, even though it looks, you know, like it's made similar, that's actually just plywood. I shouldn't have done that. So this is plywood on the bottom, and it just gets stained, so it looks good. And it would help if I didn't drop the lid. So the plywood looks really nice. So that's separate from the lumber that I use. And I just find that that's a more economical way to do the bottoms instead of trying to find or make panels to go in there. That, and nobody got time for that. So, but the other pieces that go in there, there's corner pieces, and I just use wood like this, and I cut little corner pieces to go in to the corners, and they get glued in. And then the lid is something different. I try to find pieces of wood that I can use for the lids that are obviously that are matching in wood species. Let me find my lid wood over here that I've got. Yeah, so for these 3 bases that I just cut, I have this piece of wood right here. This is a piece of crazy figured maple, or not maple, walnut. That one? No, this one. So if you look at this, has like all kinds of crazy figured stuff going through it. It has not been planed or anything yet, but I'm going to cut this into, probably I'll cut it lengthwise like this, and then I will resaw this. So basically split this in half, split those 2 pieces in half, and get my lids for these out of that. So those will look really pretty. Also for my sycamore that I have, I just saved 1 piece of sycamore. I did not take this down to thickness, so it's thick enough for me to actually cut this in half, split it open, glue it, and then this will be a lid for the sycamore. So I'm only going to make 1 sycamore that has a storage compartment. And then, oh, my son locked the front door and he just left for work. All right, that's son number 2. I have 2 sons. So the sycamore, I have enough to make 1 base with a storage compartment, and then 1 base with no storage compartment. Because this is a shorter piece. This piece right here is shorter, you can see, by a bit than this piece. So what I will do is take this one and cut 2 long pieces and then 3 shorts out of it. I've got enough for that. And then this one, I can cut the shorter pieces, because remember, those shorter pieces are only, what did I say? 13 3/4 inches long. So they're about this long, and then another one about this long, and then I only need 2 sides. So I'll have a little extra left over from this one. And then the oak, what am I gonna do with the oak? I'm gonna look at this one. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. And then this one is gonna be 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm basically gonna make one, kind of the same deal here. I'm gonna make this one right here with a storage compartment. So I've got 2 larger ones, and I think, oh, maybe not. No, I'm sorry. So these right here are gonna be non-storage compartment bases. That's right. So these will be non-storage compartment bases right here for these 2, and the same here. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 4 with storage compartments and 4 that are just plain bases. So let me go ahead and get this cut. This is more cutting right here than the others. So let me get this cut. Let me check this end here. It's probably not square. So I'm going to shave this off really quickly right here. and get this flattened out. This is the longer one, right? Yep. All right, I'm going to get this one cut down, and then we will do the others. But this is going to get the same treatment. I'm going to shave this edge off and then measure 18.5 inches on this. Here's my another piece of scrap wood from the walnut. All right, let's get this, just the edge on here. Okay. All right, we need 18.5 inches on this end. And I have to erase my other line here before I get it confused, because I don't want to cut these too long. Okay, get this one on here. All right, and let's go. Dust. Okay. And once again, just very little scrap left over from these pieces. So there's the complete set for this base right here. And now I'm going to be basically cutting smaller dimensions. So I need to look not the 18.5, but now it's going to be 13 3/4 inches to get these other ones here. Let me just make sure there's no, okay. And no questions, no posers, no queries from the gallery here. So sycamore, kind of a pain in the butt to work with sometimes. All right, I'm going to measure, I got to cut this one down. I think this one needs to be squared up. Although that's pretty darn square right there. Now, the only thing about that is sometimes they're square that way, but they're not square this way, but that's really square. So I do not have to do any cuts to this before I measure, which is outstanding. Oh, put that down here. That's my lid piece. I don't want to get it confused. So now we're doing 13 3/4 inches. I do not want to confuse that with the last one. So 13 3/4 inches. So get that marked. Okay. Should go do this edge. Okay, there's my 13 3/4. Just gonna check that again, just, to be sure, 13 3/4. All right, let's get this one cut. And then we will do the sides. And like I said, this should go a little faster because we only have to do 2 cuts instead of 3, or, you know what I mean. Okay. Right, that's it for the sycamore. So you can see that I now have one short set. Well, hang on, you can't see that yet, but maybe now you can. I have one short set right here on top, and then this has longer pieces at the bottom for the side compartment. I'm going to set this stuff aside. This is scrap. I'm going to put this over here with my scrap wood for the moment. So trying to get these all set aside. Now these are going to be the same thing. I'm going to cut 13 and a half, no, 13 and 3/4. But I need to make sure that my edge is squared up here. This is probably not, because that looks rough cut, so I'm going to say no. But let me find my edge here. Not this edge. This edge might, this might be. I could use a squaring up a little bit there, I think. So let me square this really quickly before we start cutting on it. This is the white oak. And just putting that into the path there a little bit. Just shaving just a teeny bit off of the edge here. Measure our 13 and 3/4. Okay, which is right here. Now, the thing about these bases is that all of the sides are all the same. So that's why I keep coming back to this piece. They're all the same. So I don't have to, even if I'm making a one with a storage compartment or one without, they all have the same length of side. So it's still that 7 and 11/16, which is why I can keep coming back to that particular board and using it as a guide, because I know that's 7 and 11/16, and I get repeatable cuts off of that. So, all right, this first one here, and then I will use that for the second one, and so on and so on. Almost done with these. Okay, we've got 2 more sets to cut here. Let me find the marks that I'm looking for. Where are you? There we go. So I want this edge down and back. So I'm going to trim this one off. And then I think what I'm going to do is So I'm gonna grab this and just get right into these cuts. A little less delay here. Let me get this edge cut off first. So I really only have one more thing to make here, which is the two side pieces, because that's just what I had on the Cherry. This has a real big split check right here in the end. You can see that. So I want to make sure that this is not the edge that I start cutting my side pieces off of. That would be on this end. So I'm going to make sure this is square. And it looks like it could, nope, it is, I see no light. So this is nice and square. So I'm going to go ahead and make my 2 short piece cuts, and then we will be done with this part of the operation. Okay, that's that. So now we can talk about what is next on the hit parade. And that is really something that I can set up and show you, but it's not something I'm just gonna like set up to let you watch. Although I did make you watch me plane, which was, you know, painful, I'm sure. But anyway, so what happens next on these is that I have to do some CNC work. I have to figure out, first of all, how many of these I want to have I put a Singer logo with my CNC machine. I carve that in the face. Just on one side, I would carve that in the face, and that gets centered on there. So I have to figure out, okay, which ones do I want to do that on? Am I going to do it on everyone? I can tell you that the Sycamore ones are not getting the logo because they're too short. They're too small. And the logo takes up a little bit of space. Actually, I have one here. Hang on, I will show you. Hang on, is it on this one? Here's one on this one. No, that's not it. Let me grab one from inside real quick. Hang on just a second. I have one with a logo. Just relax, I'm right here. All right. This is a base without a storage compartment, but it does have the logo on there. And you can see, I'm trying to get it shine light. But anyway, so this is the logo. Let me get you a little close-up cam action here. So there's the logo, and that gets carved with the CNC machine. And now this is sized for a 3-inch wide piece of wood. So I might need to reduce this down just a little bit because, let me get the ruler here and just check the width on this thing is 2.5 inches. And because my base wood here is like at 2 7/8, 2.5 inches is a tight squeeze on here. So I might shrink that down just a little bit, just a little. So I can only do that on my widest pieces. And I don't think, so definitely the white oak and definitely on the walnut I can do that on. I may not do it on the cherry. The cherry may not get a logo. So I think these 1, 2, 3, 4, these 5 over here are going to get the logo on them because they're wide enough to support that. And then the other thing that I need to do with the CNC machine is I need to do the handles. So you can see here are handles in the side of the bases, right? I used to do this on my router table, and I would take the box and put it in there, and it makes me a nervous wreck doing this on the router table. And it was also very prone to getting chip out. And when you put all your work into doing this and then you chip out a big section of wood here, it's enough to make you cry because, you know, you've almost destroyed a really good base. So I have now switched to, by the way, that was sapele wood, if you didn't know. I've now switched to doing these on my, and I've switched, I don't know, maybe 6 months to a year ago. I switched doing these on my CNC machine. And the way that works is I take the 2 boards, I figure out, okay, well, where's, you know, where do I want which one do I want? What's my outside face? That's the first thing. Like this is pretty, right? It could be well, actually this is prettier. This has a couple little streaky things in it there. So I'll make this an outside face, and then I'll make maybe, let's say this one the outside face. So they look nice. Then I have to figure out, well, what's the bottom or the top of the base? Is it gonna sit this way or is it gonna sit this way? So if I say, okay, well, it's gonna sit this way, right? And then this one will sit, I like it this way. All right, so I now have my outside sides of the base right here. Well, now I need to take those pieces, turn them, face them each other like this, right? And then on the CNC machine, I have a bit that comes in and actually takes wood out of here on both sides. I'll just kind of draw it in here so you can see. So it takes wood out like this, and it just makes a nice path like this, and carves out these handles, and it does both of them at the same time because I'm just basically removing wood, but it works out really well. So it's going to cut out something that looks like that. That's about the pattern that it does to cut out. Hopefully you can see that. I did it in pencil. So, and then when you're done, you pull them out, and now you have carved handles on each side that look like the base I just showed you. So I do that on the CNC machine as well. And I have to do all the CNC carving before I do any assembly of the bases. And before I generally do that before I do the any of the joinery work. The joinery work is basically just rabbets or rebates. I don't know, however, some people in other countries call it a rebate. I call them a rabbet. So rabbet bits, and for the ones with the storage, they get a dado for the center piece that divides the main compartment and the side compartment. So there's a dado cut for that, and then rabbets on the ends, and the boards kind of just fit together like that. But like I said, I have to do the work on the CNC machine before I get to that point. Setting it up for the CNC is really simple. I already have the patterns established on here, and I use a, well, here, hang on a second. I'll show you. I'm not going to run one, but I'll show you. So let me go back here, and well, hang on a second. Let me get into it first, and I'll pull it up on the screen, sort of, so that you can see what I'm doing. And the thing about, and this is, some people don't like this about the X-Carve, I actually do like it about the X-Carve, is that it is web-based. Now, like say my internet goes down, I'm kind of hosed. But that almost never happens to me. I've got fiber and it's really reliable. And so I don't really have to rely on, you know, my lack of or having my internet access. I almost always have internet access. So that's not really an issue. Wow, they have like really redone this since I've been in here last. Let me log into my easel account. Hopefully it remembers my easel account. There we go. All right, so I'm gonna go pull up this screen for you. Let me get the camera on there so you can see what I'm looking at over here. I'll zoom in like this. There you go. There. You're like, where? I don't see a darn thing. But don't worry, it's there. I'll show you. Right there. There you go. So that's what I'm working with, is just basically saved projects. So when I go to do my, my handles, what I will do is I've got one here marked base handles, and I'll open that up. And all the handles are the same established size. Now you're like, you're looking at this going, well, it's not going to do what it's supposed to do because it's going to put that over on the side. That's just how I zero center everything. It's just an alignment thing. It's not really that big of a deal. But if I move this here, I'll show you. I can move this. So if I move this over here, you'll see that this cut right here, and let me zoom into that, you can see that cut that it makes right there is now over here. Well, I do this like it's one piece of wood. I don't treat it like it's two different pieces of wood, because the pieces of wood are jointed and butted up to each other, and they're basically shoved against each other to create like one piece of wood. But anyway, the reason I do this over here is it's easier for me to zero out and find the exact place to start this. Because normally you start down in the lower corner and then you push it over. So, but anyway, you don't need to know those things. But anyway, this is what I use for doing the handles. And I just have a little, let's see if I can find it here, a little upcut 1/4 inch spiral bit right here. And this thing just goes and just keeps making cuts until they're all done. It takes approximately, let's see, let me do a simulate and see what it's going to tell me I have to do here. So it says 11 minutes, but I speed it up a little bit. So it's about 10 minutes per. So I have 8 bases, so basically 80 minutes of carving for the handles. You know, and that means that I get it set up so that I can actually slide them in, lock a couple of clamps in place, zero it out, carve it, and then loosen one clamp, pull those boards out, slide 2 more in, set it up and go. So I've got it down to about as quick as I can get. Now, the other thing that I do is file open, and my other saved project, and I will find that, is my flourish right here. So it's pulling open that particular item. So what this does is it's a design that's on here, and it sends the code from the program into my controller, which is down here, and then that goes into the CNC machine, which directs it into how deep and how left and how right, back, forth, up, down, all that good stuff. So it's controlling the X, Y, and Z axis through code that is generated from my little pattern here. And let me get a detailed view here. Let's see here. There are much more intricate and controllable programs, but this is the one that came with my X-Carve, and I've actually really come to really enjoy it. You can see there is, well, that's a 1/4 of the logo. Like I said, I kind of space them off on the side that way for my 0 point, but that's, you can see the carving of it. Hopefully you can see that on there. That's the carving portion that it will do, except that it will be centered in the wood when I'm done with it. So anyway, so that's what I do with the CNC machine. And it makes life a lot easier for me. The other thing is that doing, I mean, just the handle part alone is so much more simple and easy. Once I get the first one set up and rolling, the amount of time it takes me to do these things is so much less than when I used to do it on a router table. It's hard to explain. And I know everybody doesn't have one of those. I mean, you can do them with, there's different ways to do handles and stuff. That's just the way that I have come in my process and my trying to automate my process, that this is, you know, I've got the tool and I'm going to use it, you know, the best I can. The other thing is this right here, this logo, right? Well, this is what sets me apart from competition, from others who are making bases and such. There is a guy who, I don't want to say stole, I guess was inspired by my design here, and he has a, his are not carved in, he has a laser, and he laser etches a logo, but not this logo. He uses like the Singer S, which by the way, that's still trademarked. This is not, so shame on him. But anyway, he does that with a laser engraver, and I use my CNC to do this. I just use a 60-degree V-carve bit, and the flourishes are my little addition. I just think they kind of class things up a little bit. But anyway, this is what sets my bases apart. When I have things like this, if you see that, you know that came from JR's wood shop right there. That's all you need to know. If you see these flush bases with the circular holes at the top with the storage compartments, and that came from my shop. There's other people who make lids, but they don't make them like I make them. So I try to add special touches to them. Things like my handles. You can't believe how people love the handles that I put in the side of my bases. Everybody doesn't do handles in their bases. I put handles in That's the first thing my wife said to me. She's like, put handles in, please. Because it's so hard to pick this machine in the base up if you don't, because then you'll have to, like, you end up sliding it off the table and trying to catch an edge. And you put the handles in there and it's like, boop, it's easy. So the handles, people love those things. The logos, people love the logo. The storage compartment with the flush lid, they love that. So all those little things, you know, I just try to get the feedback from my customers and then keep the train rolling, give them what they want. And that's why I'm doing these bases instead of the ones I've showed you. Those are larger. They accommodate a different machine, but they're a larger machine. And I've had a lot of people saying, hey, can you make the ones for the 29 or the 128, or which are 3/4 size machines? And I've had enough of people asking me that I'm like, okay, maybe it's time that I make a batch of these things to, you know, to help people out, for one thing, because they're super hard to find, and you can't sew with those machines unless they have a base. You can't. They don't sit square on the table. This, let me show you this one right here. This one, you could sew with this machine right here if you wanted to. It would sew. I've got it unlocked here. Lock? I don't know. One of these locks it in or whatever. Anyway, there we go. So you could sew with this. There we go. If you wanted to, because it. Did I lose pieces off of here? I think I lost a piece. This thing fell down the other day, and I think a piece popped off. Anyway, this is a one I use for sizing. It's kind of like, I won't call it a junker, but it's a parts machine. But you could sew with this because it has 4 feet that come down that sit, and it doesn't interfere with mechanics. The smaller machines would not work this way. You couldn't do this and sew with it without a base underneath it. So that's why I'm doing the small ones, because, you know, I had enough people who asked about them, and I was like, you know, it's time that I roll out some small ones. And I've made them in the past, obviously, because I have all the measurements. So I've made them in the past, and I get generally more requests for the larger ones because there's just more of those around. But I figure if I have these, if they don't sell right away, that's okay. They can sit. They don't, you know, it's not like they go bad on the vine or anything. They're just going to sit there until someone comes across it and says, ooh, I need that, I want it, and then they'll buy it. So having inventory on the shelf, not always a bad thing. It just lets people see your stuff as well. So anyway, where does that leave us? Well, over the weekend, I think I will try to do some CNC carving, and I will show you what I've carved on Monday, because honestly, to make you sit there and watch the CNC machine just go, and it's loud and you can't hear anything, and it's just one of those things. Maybe I will save one set of handles to show you on Monday, and I'll save one of them for the handles. All the logos, I will do those. I'll do those without showing you, because that takes a long time. I think the logos take about a half an hour to carve. And so if I'm doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with logos, so, you know, that's 2.5 hours. Well, more than that, because there's setup time, but closer to 3 hours of carving for the logos, and it's not that exciting to watch. It really isn't. The handles, they go a little faster. I'll set up a set of handles, and we'll kind of look at those. I'll save one handle. I'll get all the others done. And then from the handles, basically we can get into cutting all of the joinery cuts that we need to make, and I do those on the table saw. So we'll get that set up, and we'll work on that on Monday. So I think that's where we'll leave it today. Monday. Yeah, Monday's not a holiday. Well, okay. Technically, Monday is a federal holiday. So if you have Monday off, hop in, watch the stream. It'll be awesome. 11 o'clock. That would be great. I will be here in the shop. Every day's a holiday for me because I'm retired. But I will work on that stuff this weekend. As far as you go, have yourself a nice weekend. Have a nice holiday. I hope your weather is good. If you aren't in the United States and don't celebrate Independence Day like we do here, I still hope you have a nice weekend, and that you get to do something fun. Be safe. You know, if you haven't had your shots, for goodness gracious sake, get your shots, please. Take care of yourself, take care of your friends, take care of your family. Let's take care of our, you know, our communities and just get this done so we can get back to really just being together again. But anyway, sorry, preachy, very preachy, Jeff. I think we'll call it quits. Have a great weekend, and I will see you back here in JR's Woodshop on Monday. Take care.